The slap echoed through the crowded living room like a gunshot. Chioma's head snapped to the side, her cheek burning as 200 eyes watched in silence. Mama Okafor's hand trembled in the air, her gold bangles clinking like chains of judgment. 7 years, the old woman shrieked, her voice cracking with rage. 7 years of shame you have brought to this family. My son married an empty pot that cannot boil water or birth children. Chioma touched her stinging face, her expression unnaturally calm. Around her the entire Okafor clan had gathered, aunties, uncles, cousins, all nodding in agreement like vultures circling prey. Mama, please, Chioma started. Don't mama me, you cursed woman. Mama Okafor cut her off, turning to her son. Emeka, tell this Barren thing to leave our family compound now. Today. My patience is finished. Chioma's eyes found her husband across the room. Emeka stood by the window, his jaw clenched, unable to meet her gaze. For a long moment, hope flickered in her chest. Surely he would defend her. Surely their 7 years of marriage meant something. Emeka, she whispered. He finally looked at her, and what she saw in his eyes killed something inside her. Shame, yes, but also relief. Relief that his mother was saying what he'd been too coward to say himself. Pack your things, Chioma, he said quietly. You have 1 hour. The room erupted in approval. Women ululated. Men nodded solemnly. Someone even began clapping. But Chioma did something that stopped them all cold. She smiled. Not a sad smile. Not a defeated smile. A smile that held secrets worth billions. 1 hour, she said softly, her voice carrying a strange power that made the room fall silent again. That's more than enough time. She pulled out her phone, not the small Nokia Emeka had bought her, but a sleek iPhone that materialized from her bag, and made a single call. Ada. Send the cars. It's time. Mama Okafor frowned. Cars? What nonsense is this woman? 3 black Mercedes SUVs pulled up outside, their engines purring like panthers. Men in sharp suits emerged, forming a protective line. Chioma walked toward the door, her head high, leaving her confused husband and his family frozen in place. Emeka, she said without turning back, you just made the most expensive mistake of your life. But don't worry, you'll understand very soon. As she stepped into the lead vehicle, she glanced back one final time at the modest home where she'd played the role of humble housewife for 7 years. The test was over. And they had all failed. Welcome to African Tales. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe, and share it with your friends, and most important thing, turn your notification bell so you can get informed when I dropped another amazing story. Drop your thoughts and reactions in the comments. What would you do if your spouse tried to kill you and you survive? Will you take a revenge or disappear forever? The morning sun painted Lagos in shades of amber and gold as Chioma Okafor stirred a pot of egusi soup in her kitchen. The aroma of palm oil, crayfish, and bitter leaf filled the small but tidy home she shared with Emeka in Ikeja. Her phone buzzed, her secret phone, hidden in a false bottom of her purse. A text from her assistant. Board meeting at 3 p.m. The Henderson deal needs your signature. $500 million on the line. She deleted the message and returned to her soup, humming softly. Chioma. Emeka's voice called from the bedroom. Did you iron my shirt for the bank ceremony? Yes, my husband. It's hanging in the wardrobe, she replied, the dutiful wife's tone coming as naturally as breathing after 7 years of practice. This double life had become her reality. By day, she was Chioma Okafor, the quiet, submissive wife who couldn't give her husband children. By night, through video calls and encrypted messages, she was CJ Williams, the mysterious CEO whose tech empire, TechVision Africa, was revolutionizing business software across the continent. No one knew. Not Emeka. Not his family. Only her younger sister Ada, who served as her public representative, and her tight circle of executives who'd signed ironclad NDAs. She'd created this test 7 years ago when she met Emeka at a friend's wedding. He'd been charming, attentive, seemingly different from the money-hungry men who'd pursued her once they learned of her wealth. So she'd hidden it. Became just Chioma, a woman who worked a modest job at a non-profit. When he proposed, she'd been overjoyed. Finally, someone who loved her for herself. But then came the pressure for children. The tests. The tears. The blame. And the medical report she'd never shared, the one that proved Emeka was infertile, not her. She'd protected his pride, his manhood, his reputation. She'd let his family call her Barren, cursed, useless. All while waiting to see if he would defend her. If his love would prove stronger than tradition and shame. Chioma. We need to go to my mother's house, Emeka announced, entering the kitchen already dressed. Family meeting. Her heart sank. She knew what family meetings meant lately. More accusations. More pressure. More humiliation. What is it about? She asked carefully. Just come. And wear something nice. The whole family will be there. Something in his tone made her stomach twist. She stirred her soup one last time, then turned off the stove. Let me change, she said. In the bedroom, she opened her secret phone one more time. Typed a message to Ada. Might need extraction soon. Stand by. Then she dressed in her simplest Ankara wrapper and blouse, tied her Geli head wrap with practiced hands, and prepared for whatever judgment awaited her at Mama Okafor's compound. The Okafor family home in Surulere was a sprawling 3-story building that housed Mama Okafor, 2 of Emeka's brothers with their wives and children, and a rotating cast of relatives who seemed to materialize whenever free food was available. As Chioma and Emeka arrived, she noticed too many cars in the compound. Her mother-in-law's friends from the Market Women's Association. Emeka's uncles from the village. Even Pastor Adeyemi from their church. This wasn't a family meeting. This was a tribunal. Come, come. Mama Okafor called from the veranda, her voice sickeningly sweet. My daughter has arrived. Come and sit down here in the center where everyone can see you. Chioma's pulse quickened, but she maintained her calm exterior. She greeted the elders properly, kneeling as tradition demanded, though many of the women barely acknowledged her. A plastic chair had been placed in the center of the living room. Every other seat was occupied. She was meant to sit alone, on display. Emeka took a seat beside his brothers. He still wouldn't look at her. So, Mama Okafor clapped her hands, commanding attention. We have gathered today to discuss a matter of great importance to this family. A matter that has brought us shame for too long. Murmurs of agreement rippled through the crowd. My son Emeka married this woman 7 years ago. 7 years. In our culture, even 1 year without pregnancy is concerning. But 7. She paused for effect. This is not ordinary. This is a curse. Amen to that. Someone shouted. Chioma's sister-in-law, Ngozi, leaned forward. Mama Okafor, I have been married to your son Chidi for only 3 years, and I have given you 2 grandchildren. Your son Obinna has been married 4 years, 3 children. But Emeka, your firstborn, has nothing to show. Not even 1 pregnancy scare. Laughter erupted. Cruel, mocking laughter. Pastor Adeyemi cleared his throat. My dear sister Chioma, I have prayed for you many times. We have done deliverance sessions. Fasting. Anointing oil. But the Lord has not opened your womb. Sometimes, we must accept that God is saying no. Pastor, God is not saying no, Mama Okafor interjected sharply. This woman is barren. Dry like the Sahara. And she is stopping my son from experiencing the joy of fatherhood. Chioma finally spoke, her voice steady. Mama, have you considered that perhaps? Considered what? The old woman snapped. That my son, whose brothers have children spilling everywhere, is the problem? Don't insult my intelligence. One of the uncles stood up, his belly protruding over his wrapper. In our culture, a woman who cannot produce children has no value. She is like a tree without fruit, taking up space, drinking water, but giving nothing back. More agreement. More nodding heads. Chioma felt tears prick her eyes, not from sadness, but from rage. Pure, crystalline rage that she'd been suppressing for years. "Emeka," she said, looking at her husband directly, "will you let them speak to me this way?" For the first time since they arrived, he met her gaze. She saw the war in his eyes, duty to her versus duty to his family. His family won. "Chioma, maybe it's time we face reality," he said softly. "My mother is getting old. She wants to hold grandchildren from her first son. And you cannot give me that. So what are you saying?" Her voice cracked despite her efforts to control it. Mama Okafor stood up, her moment of triumph at hand. "What he is saying is simple. You must leave this family. Leave our son. Let him find a woman who can fulfill her purpose." The room fell silent, waiting for Chioma's response. She looked around at all these faces, people she'd cooked for, cleaned for, helped financially without their knowledge. The school fees she'd secretly paid for Ngozi's children. The business loan she'd arranged for Uncle Obi. The medical bills for Mama Okafor's diabetes medication. All of it done quietly, anonymously, through her network. And this was her reward. "Just like that?" Chioma asked quietly. 7 years, and you throw me away like trash? You are worse than trash." Mama Okafor shrieked, losing her composure. "At least trash once had purpose. You were useless from the beginning." That's when she struck, the slap that would change everything. Chioma's head snapped sideways, pain exploding across her face. The room gasped, then erupted in chaos. Some people cheering, some shifting uncomfortably, but no one defending her. Not even Emeka. "Pack your things," he said, his voice barely audible over the noise. 1 hour. And that's when Chioma smiled. That's when she made the call. That's when 3 Mercedes SUVs pulled up outside, and the Okafor family's world began to tilt on its axis. The convoy drove through Lagos traffic with practiced efficiency, navigating the chaos of Danfos, Okadas, and luxury cars with equal ease. Chioma sat in the back seat of the lead vehicle, her fingers pressed against her still-burning cheek, watching her old life recede in the side mirror. "Ma'am, are you all right?" Her security chief, Dunlodi, glanced at her through the rearview mirror, his face dark with anger. "Should we go back? I can have them all." "No," Chioma said firmly. "Drive to the office. And call Ada. Tell her I'm done playing housewife." "Yes, ma'am." "Welcome back, CEO Williams." CEO Williams. The name felt like shedding a skin that had become too tight. The SUV turned onto Victoria Island, leaving behind the middle-class neighborhood of Ikeja. Within 20 minutes, they pulled up to a gleaming 40-story tower of glass and steel. The TechVision Africa headquarters. As Chioma emerged from the vehicle, security guards snapped to attention. Employees entering the building stopped and stared, whispering urgently into their phones. The mysterious CEO, who usually attended meetings via secure video link, was here in person. Ada burst through the lobby doors, her heels clicking against marble. "Sister." She pulled Chioma into a fierce hug, then stepped back to examine her face. "They actually hit you. I swear to God I will." "It's finished," Chioma said. "The experiment is over. He chose his family over me. Just like I predicted." Ada's eyes filled with tears. "I'm so sorry. I know you hoped." "Hope is expensive," Chioma cut her off, walking toward the private elevator. "And I just got a refund on 7 years' worth." In her penthouse office, all floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Lagos Harbor, Chioma finally allowed herself to breathe. She kicked off her modest shoes and replaced them with Louboutins from her closet. The simple Ankara gave way to a tailored Stella McCartney suit. Ada watched the transformation, seeing her sister emerge from chrysalis. "Tell me everything," Chioma said, settling behind her desk. "What happened while I was playing wife this week?" Ada pulled out a tablet. "The Henderson deal is ready for signature, $500 million to acquire their logistics platform. The South African expansion is on schedule. And she paused, a wicked smile crossing her face. The acquisition of Premier Trust Bank was finalized yesterday. Chioma's hand froze halfway to her coffee cup. Premier Trust Bank. That's where Emeka works. Yes. Ada's smile widened. You now own your husband's employer. Well, ex-husband. Are we filing for divorce? Immediately. Use the top firm. I want it fast and clean. Done. And the house. The house in Acadia was purchased through one of my shell companies. I own it. He just didn't know. Chioma felt a grim satisfaction. Stop the mortgage payments. Let him figure it out. Ada made notes, then hesitated. There's something else you should know. That medical report from 3 years ago, the one that proved Emeka is the infertile one, not you. What about it? Mama Okafor has been telling people at church that you're cursed. That you've been sleeping with native doctors. It's gotten really ugly. Chioma closed her eyes. For 7 years, she'd protected Emeka's secret. The tests had been clear, severe oligospermia. His sperm count was too low for natural conception. She'd been willing to do IVF, to adopt, to explore every option. But he'd refused to believe it. Insisted on more tests. Accused her of lying. And when his family demanded to know why there were no children, he'd let them blame her. Does anyone else know the truth? Chioma asked. Just Dr. Adebayo at the fertility clinic. He's bound by doctor-patient confidentiality. Good. Let's keep it that way. For now. Chioma stood and walked to the window, looking out at the city she'd helped build. Down there, millions of people struggled and dreamed and fought for their piece of the sky. And somewhere in that chaos was Emeka, probably just now realizing she was really gone. Ada, how did I build all this? Her sister looked confused. What do you mean? How did a girl from Abbey Estate, whose father sold textiles in Ariaria Market, become the CEO of a billion-dollar company? Tell me the story. I need to remember who I really am. Ada smiled, understanding. You were brilliant. Graduated top of your class at University of Lagos, computer science. Got a scholarship to MIT for your master's. Came back to Nigeria when everyone said you should stay in America. Built TechVision from your one-bedroom apartment in Yoba, coding 18 hours a day. And what was my vision? That African businesses deserved world-class software solutions built by Africans who understood African problems. That we didn't need to rely on Western tech companies who didn't understand our context. And what's our revenue now? Last quarter, $1.2 billion. We employ over 3,000 people across 12 African countries. Our stock, if we went public, would be worth approximately $8 billion. Chioma nodded slowly. Yes. This was who she was. Not the barren wife. Not the cursed woman. The builder. The innovator. The CEO. I nearly forgot, she whispered. I nearly let them make me forget. But you didn't, Ada said firmly. You're back now. So what's the plan? Chioma turned from the window, her eyes sharp with purpose. First, we let Emeka's world crumble slowly. He needs to understand what he had and what he lost. Second, we prepare for the big reveal. And third. She smiled, a real smile this time. We remind Lagos exactly who C.J. Williams is. The Forbes interview. Yes. It publishes next week. The photographer captured me perfectly. Powerful, successful, and very much not cursed. Ada laughed. Mama Okafor is going to have a heart attack. Let's hope her blood pressure medication is working. Chioma's smile faded. I protected them for 7 years, Ada. Paid for things they'll never know about. And they threw me out like garbage. No more protection. No more anonymous gifts. Let's see how they manage on their own. That evening, as Lego sunset painted the sky in purple and gold, Chioma stood in her real home, a luxurious penthouse in Ikoyi she'd purchased 5 years ago. Modern art on the walls. A library filled with first editions. A home office with 3 monitors displaying real-time data from her company. This was where she'd lived her real life, the nights when she told Emeka she was visiting Ada or attending non-profit events. This was where she'd built her empire, video conferencing with international clients, making million-dollar decisions, living as her authentic self. She poured a glass of wine and pulled up security footage from the Okafor compound on her laptop. Her team had installed hidden cameras months ago when she sensed things were coming to a head. She needed documentation for the divorce. On screen, the family was still gathered, celebrating her departure like a victory. Mama Okafor was showing off the room she planned to prepare for Emeka's new fertile wife. Ngozi was already suggesting candidates. But Emeka sat apart from the celebration, staring at his phone, probably trying to call her. The number he had was already disconnected. Chioma's phone rang, her real phone. Unknown number. Ms. Williams? This is Dele Okonkwo. We met at the African Tech Summit last year. Chioma remembered him, a venture capitalist, well-connected in Lagos society. Also a distant friend of the Okafor family. Mr. Okonkwo, what can I do for you? I'm calling about the Premier Trust Bank acquisition. I'm on their board of directors. I just learned that TechVision Africa is our new majority owner. That's correct. I also just came from the Okafor family compound. I was there for a meeting that... He paused uncomfortably. That you might have attended. Chioma's grip tightened on her glass. Go on. Ms. Williams, I didn't connect it until I saw the memo about our new CEO coming to the bank gala next month. The name Chioma. And then I remembered Emeka Okafor's wife. And, my God. Silence stretched between them. Mr. Okonkwo, are you calling to warn me about something? No, he said firmly. I'm calling to apologize. I sat there and said nothing while they humiliated you. I've known Mama Okafor for 20 years, and I've never had the courage to tell her she's wrong. But what happened today was evil. Pure evil. Thank you, Chioma said softly. Your honesty is noted. One more thing. The bank gala next month. It's mandatory for all senior staff. Emeka will be there. He'll see you. I'm counting on it. After the call ended, Chioma allowed herself a moment of satisfaction. The pieces were falling into place. Emeka would go to that gala expecting to meet his new corporate boss, never imagining it would be the wife he'd just discarded. But that was still weeks away. First, she had a company to run, a divorce to file, and a reputation to reclaim. She opened her laptop and began typing an email to her legal team. File divorce papers immediately. Grounds: mental cruelty and irretrievable breakdown of marriage. I want it finalized before the end of the quarter. Also, cease all anonymous payments to the Okafor family interests. Every single one. Let me know when it's done. She hit send and felt 7 years of weight lift from her shoulders. The Barren wife was dead. Long live the billionaire CEO. 3 weeks had passed since Chioma walked out of the Okafor compound, and Emeka's life was unraveling like cheap fabric. It started small. The house phone was disconnected. Then the DSTV subscription expired. When he tried to use the ATM card linked to their joint account, it was declined. The account had been emptied and closed. That which took our money. Mama Okafor shrieked when he told her. I knew it. She was planning this all along. But Emeka knew the truth. There had never been much money in that account. Chioma's non-profit salary had been modest, and his bank manager position paid well but not extravagantly. They'd lived comfortably, but not lavishly. So where had the money for everything come from? He'd never questioned it before. The mortgage payments that somehow were always handled. The generator fuel that never ran out. The small gifts Chioma bought for his family. He'd assumed she was just good at managing money. Now, standing in his kitchen holding a foreclosure notice from the mortgage company, he realized how little he'd actually known about his wife. "What do you mean, foreclosure?" he demanded over the phone. "I've never missed a payment." "Sir, according to our records, the payments were made by a corporate entity, Neo Holdings Limited. They've discontinued payment and transferred the property deed. You are no longer the owner of this property." "That's impossible. I bought this house." "Actually, sir, according to the original purchase documents, Neo Holdings Limited bought this house 7 years ago. You were listed as a resident, not an owner." The phone slipped from Emeka's hand. 7 years ago. The year he married Chioma. At Premier Trust Bank, things were somehow worse. The acquisition had been announced 2 weeks prior. TechVision Africa, the mysterious tech giant that everyone in Lagos business circles whispered about, had purchased controlling interest in the bank. New management was coming. Restructuring was inevitable. Emeka had survived 3 rounds of layoffs in his career, always managing to prove himself valuable. But this time felt different. His new supervisor, a sharp young woman from the acquiring company, had called him into her office that morning. "Mr. Okafor, your performance reviews show a concerning pattern," she said, sliding a folder across the desk. "Multiple instances of arriving late, extended lunch breaks, and according to your previous manager's notes, a tendency to delegate your most important tasks to junior staff." "That's not. I mean, I've been dealing with family issues," he stammered. "Family issues that have persisted for 3 years, according to these reports." She leaned back. "Mr. Okafor, TechVision Africa values efficiency and accountability. We're implementing new performance standards. You have 90 days to improve, or we'll have to discuss alternative arrangements." Alternative arrangements. Corporate speak for, start looking for a new job. He left her office in a daze. At his desk, he pulled out his phone and tried Chioma's number for the 100th time. Still disconnected. He'd tried her non-profit organization, but they said she'd resigned 7 years ago. 7 years ago. That number kept appearing. Where had she been going every day when she claimed to be at work? "Emeka," his colleague Tund, called from across the office. "Did you hear? The new CEO is coming to the gala next month. C.J. Williams himself. No one's ever seen him in person." "Him? Well, everyone assumes. You know how these tech billionaires are, always hiding behind assistants and video calls." Tund lowered his voice. "But I heard from someone in HR that Williams is worth 8 billion naira. Can you imagine?" Emeka couldn't imagine. His entire worldview was limited to his bank salary and his mother's expectations. 8 billion naira was the territory of oil money and old politics. That evening, the family gathered at Mama Okafor's compound for dinner, a tradition that had continued even after Chioma's departure. But the atmosphere was different now. Tense. "Emeka, my son," Mama Okafor began, her voice uncharacteristically worried. "That small provision shop I run in the market? The landlord has increased the rent. He says our rent subsidy program ended." "What subsidy?" "I've been paying full rent for 20 years. Uncle Obi chimed in. "And that business loan I got last year? The one with the very good interest rate? They're calling it in early. Saying the special program I qualified for has been discontinued." Ngozi looked up from feeding her baby. "The children's school called me today. They said there's an outstanding balance on the fees. But I paid everything. They showed me records of a scholarship program. I never applied for that covered 60%. Now they want all that money back." Emeka's stomach dropped. He pulled out the foreclosure notice and laid it on the table. "The house is being taken. We have 30 days to vacate." Silence fell like a hammer. "What do you mean?" Mama Okafor's face drained of color. "That house is yours. We attended the housewarming. We blessed it. Apparently, it was never mine. It belonged to a company called Neo Holdings Limited. What kind of company is this? Why would they let you live there for free? Emeka met his mother's eyes. I don't think it was free. I think someone was paying them. Someone who stopped paying when she left. The implications settled over the room like a burial shroud. No, Mama Okafor said firmly. No, that useless girl couldn't. She worked at a non-profit. She had no money. You're telling me. I'm telling you I don't know who I married, Emeka said quietly. Her phone is disconnected. Her job says she quit 7 years ago. The house, the money, everything. I don't know where any of it came from. Pastor Adeyemi, who had come for dinner, cleared his throat. My son, perhaps you should try to find her. Apologize. Whatever anger exists between you, surely it can be. Apologize. Mama Okafor exploded. For what? For expecting a wife to fulfill her basic duty? For not wanting to grow old without grandchildren from my first son? That woman should be grateful we tolerated her for 7 years. But her voice lacked its usual conviction. For the first time, doubt flickered in her eyes. Obinna, Emeka's younger brother, spoke up. Mama, remember when I was starting my business? That anonymous investor who gave me seed money? The one who never asked for repayment. Everyone turned to look at him. And Gozi, your children's scholarship, appeared right after Chi heard you talking about school fees being too expensive. And Mama, Chidi added slowly, your diabetes medication, the expensive imported kind your doctor recommended? It started appearing at the pharmacy, already paid for right after your diagnosis. The connections were forming, puzzle pieces clicking into place. She couldn't have, Mama Okafor whispered. She had no money. She was nothing. But what if she wasn't nothing? Uncle Obi said quietly. What if we never knew who she really was? That night, unable to sleep, Emeka searched for Chioma online. He typed her name into Google, scrolling through pages of irrelevant results. Then he tried Chioma Okafor Billionaire as a joke. The screen filled with articles. But they weren't about Chioma Okafor. They were about C.J. Williams. He clicked on a Forbes Africa article published just yesterday. Africa's most mysterious tech billionaire finally reveals her face. The article loaded, and Emeka's world stopped spinning. Staring back at him from his laptop screen, in a power suit and heels, wearing an expression of absolute confidence, was his wife. No, his ex-wife. The papers had been served last week. The article read, after years of operating behind the scenes, CEO Chioma C.J. Williams has decided to step into the spotlight. At 34, she's the founder and CEO of TechVision Africa, the continent's fastest-growing software company. With an estimated net worth of $8 billion naira and operations in 12 countries. The laptop slipped from Emeka's numb fingers. 8 billion naira. The mysterious C.J. Williams that everyone at his bank was preparing to meet. The new owner of Premier Trust Bank. His boss. Was his wife. Was Chioma. The barren woman. The useless one. The curse upon his family. She was one of the richest people in Nigeria. And he had thrown her out like trash. Emeka's phone rang. Tund, his colleague from work. Emeka. Have you seen it? The Forbes article? C.J. Williams is a woman. And she's stunning. She'll be at the gala next month. This is, wait, she looks familiar. Where have I seen her before? Emeka hung up without answering. He sat in the darkness of the house he was about to lose, understanding now that every comfort he'd enjoyed for 7 years had been a gift from the woman he'd betrayed. The woman who'd had the power to destroy him all along but had chosen to love him instead. Until he'd proven he didn't deserve it. His phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. The gala is in 2 weeks. Mandatory attendance for all senior staff. I suggest you prepare yourself. C.J. Williams. Emeka's hands shook as he read the message. She was coming for him. And there was nothing he could do but wait for Judgment Day. The Lagos Continental Hotel ballroom glittered like a jewelry box under crystal chandeliers. 500 of Nigeria's banking elite filled the space. Senior executives in tuxedos, their wives in couture gowns, everyone positioned according to unspoken hierarchies of wealth and influence. Emeka Okafor stood near the back, tugging at his bow tie. The tuxedo rental had cost him 2 weeks' salary. Money he couldn't afford to spend, but attendance was mandatory. His demotion last week meant he barely qualified for an invitation, but his new supervisor had made it clear: show up or start looking for a new job. Around him, the gossip was electric. They say C.J. Williams arrived in Lagos yesterday on a private jet. I heard she's meeting with the president tomorrow. My cousin works at TechVision. Says she's brilliant but terrifying. Makes grown men cry in board meetings. Is she married? Single? Does anyone know? Emeka stayed silent, nursing his Chapman and trying to become invisible. He'd lost 12 pounds in 2 weeks, unable to eat, unable to sleep. His mother had called that morning. You need to apologize to her, Mama Okafor had said, her voice small and frightened, so unlike her usual commanding tone. Whatever it takes. Get on your knees. Beg. Mama, she's worth billions. She owns my bank. What could I possibly? You could try telling her the truth, his mother had snapped. Then, softer, tell her about the medical report. Tell her you were scared. That you were weak. That you loved her but you weren't strong enough to stand up to me. Too late, Emeka had thought. Years too late. The lights dimmed. A hush fell over the ballroom. Distinguished guests, the MC announced. It is my honor to introduce the woman who has revolutionized African business technology. The founder and CEO of TechVision Africa. Please welcome Ms. Chioma C.J. Williams. Spotlight hit the entrance. And there she was. Chioma descended the grand staircase in a midnight blue gown that probably cost more than his yearly salary. Her hair was styled in elegant braids wrapped into a crown. Diamond earrings caught the light. But it was her face, the face he'd seen across the breakfast table for 7 years, that struck him like a physical blow. She looked like royalty. No, she looked like herself. The self she'd hidden from him for 7 years. The ballroom erupted in applause. People surged forward, trying to get close to her, but her security team, including Dunlodi, whom Emeka now recognized as the driver who'd picked up Chioma sometimes, kept them at a respectful distance. Chioma took the stage with the confidence of someone who owned it. Because she did. She owned everything in this room. Good evening. Her voice carried effortlessly, amplified by the sound system. Thank you for that warm welcome. I know many of you are surprised to see me. 4 years, I've operated behind the scenes, allowing my work to speak for itself. But times have changed. Africa is changing. And I believe it's time for new models of leadership. Transparent, accountable, and visible. She paused, her eyes scanning the crowd. They passed over Emeka without stopping, as if he were a stranger. When I founded TechVision Africa 12 years ago in a 1-bedroom apartment in Yoba, I had a simple vision: African solutions for African problems. We didn't need foreign companies to tell us what we needed. We didn't need charity. We needed investment, innovation, and respect. Oz thundered through the ballroom. Today, TechVision employs over 3,000 people. We operate in 12 countries. Our software runs the logistics for 60% of West African businesses. And now, with our acquisition of Premier Trust Bank, we're positioned to revolutionize financial services across the continent. More applause. Emeka felt dizzy. The woman on that stage, commanding, brilliant, powerful, had cooked his meals, washed his clothes, knelt before his mother, all while building an empire in the shadows. But tonight, Chioma continued, her voice shifting to something harder, I want to talk about value. How we measure it. How we assign it. How we often get it catastrophically wrong. The room quieted, sensing a shift in tone. 7 years ago, I made a decision to test something. I wondered, if I stripped away my wealth, my title, my power, would I still be valued as a human being? As a woman? As a wife? Whispers rippled through the crowd. Several people turned to look at Emeka, recognition dawning on their faces. I married a man who didn't know I was a CEO, who thought I worked at a non-profit. I wanted to be loved for who I was, not what I had. It was perhaps naive, perhaps foolish, but it was honest. Emeka's heart hammered against his ribs. For 7 years, I played a role. I was the dutiful wife, the quiet one, the submissive one. And when I couldn't give my husband children, when I was declared barren, cursed, worthless, I protected his secret. You see, I wasn't the infertile one. He was. Gasps erupted throughout the ballroom. Heads swiveled toward Emeka like predators scenting blood. I had the medical reports. I could have defended myself. But I loved him. I thought protecting his pride, his dignity, his reputation was what love meant. So I let them call me barren. Let them humiliate me. Let them strike me in front of 200 people. Someone near Emeka stepped away, creating a circle of empty space around him. But here's what I learned, Chioma said, her voice ringing with conviction. Silence isn't love. Protection without reciprocity isn't love. Accepting abuse to keep peace isn't love. Love requires courage. Requires standing up. Requires mutual respect. She paused, and for the first time since taking the stage, looked directly at Emeka. My ex-husband is in this room tonight. He works, for now, at the bank I just acquired. He's wearing a rented tuxedo because 3 weeks ago I stopped paying his mortgage, his bills, and all the anonymous support I'd been providing his family for 7 years. Support they never knew about. Support they certainly never appreciated. The silence in the ballroom was deafening. Emeka Okafor, please step forward. It wasn't a request. It was a command. Emeka's legs moved on autopilot. The crowd parted like the Red Sea as he walked toward the stage, every eye burning into him. His face was wet. When had he started crying? He stopped at the foot of the stage, looking up at the woman he'd thrown away. Do you have anything to say? Chioma asked, her voice devoid of emotion. Emeka's mouth opened, closed. What could he possibly say? Sorry seemed laughably inadequate. Explanations seemed like excuses. I was weak, he finally whispered, though the microphone caught it. You deserved strength, and I gave you cowardice. You deserved loyalty, and I gave you betrayal. You deserved love, and I gave you shame. Yes, Chioma agreed simply. You did all those things. The question is, why? Because I was afraid. The words burst from him. Afraid that if I couldn't give you children, I wasn't a man. Afraid my family would discover the truth. Afraid to face my own inadequacy. So I let you take the blame. I let them hurt you. And I will regret it for the rest of my life. Will you? Chioma tilted her head, studying him like a specimen. Or will you regret losing my money? My connections? My power? How do I know what you actually regret? I don't expect you to know, Emeka said, his voice breaking. I don't expect forgiveness. I don't expect anything. I just need you to hear this. You were never barren. Never cursed. Never worthless. You were extraordinary, and I was too small to see it. Too weak to defend it. Too foolish to deserve it. For a long moment, Chioma stared at him. Then she turned back to the audience. Ladies and gentlemen, this is what happens when we judge people's value by narrow metrics. When we reduce women to their wombs. When we prioritize tradition over truth, family pressure over spousal loyalty, appearance over integrity. She descended the stairs, walking past Emeka without another glance. I am living proof that the woman you dismiss might be the one who holds your future in her hands. The wife you discard might be the CEO who signs your paycheck. The barren woman might be the one with the power to make or break your world. She reached the center of the ballroom floor, and people instinctively made space for her. I'm sharing this story not for revenge, though I won't lie, there's satisfaction in this moment. I'm sharing it as a warning and a lesson. Value people. Really value them. Not for what they can give you or how they make you look, but for their inherent worth as human beings. The applause started slowly, then built to a crescendo. People rose to their feet, one after another, until the entire ballroom was standing. Except Emeka, who had collapsed to his knees on the stage, his face in his hands. Chioma walked toward the exit, her security team flanking her. But at the doorway, she paused and turned back. Oh, and Emeka? You're fired. Clean out your desk tomorrow. Then she was gone, leaving behind a ballroom full of stunned faces and a broken man who finally understood what he'd lost. Outside, Ada waited by the car, grinning like a Cheshire cat. That was magnificent. Absolutely magnificent. The way you... I feel sick, Chioma said, leaning against the Mercedes. Ada, I feel like I'm going to throw up. But you did it. You faced him. You told the truth. I humiliated him in front of 500 people. I destroyed his career. His reputation. Everything. Chioma's hands shook. I thought revenge would feel better than this. Ada gripped her sister's shoulders. Listen to me. You didn't destroy him. He destroyed himself. You just refused to keep protecting him from the consequences. There's a difference. Is there? Chioma whispered. Yes. And tomorrow, you'll remember that. Tonight, you're allowed to feel complicated about it. You loved him once. That was real. They drove through Lagos in silence, the city's nighttime chaos a blur of lights and sound. Back at her penthouse, Chioma changed out of her gown and stood by the window in silk pajamas, looking out at the city below. Her phone buzzed. A message from Mr. Okonkwo. That took courage. Real courage. Proud to be associated with TechVision. Then another from Dr. Adebayo, her fertility doctor. I watched the live stream. Thank you for telling the truth. You have no idea how many women suffer in silence, blamed for their husband's infertility. You gave them a voice tonight. And another from someone she didn't know. My husband's family has called me Barren for 6 years. Tonight, you gave me strength to get the tests that will prove otherwise. Thank you. The messages kept coming. Dozens. Then hundreds. Women sharing their stories, their pain, their gratitude. Chioma sat on her couch, reading through them all, tears streaming down her face. Not tears of regret, tears of release. For 7 years, she'd carried the weight of someone else's shame. Tonight, she'd put it down. Her phone rang. Mama Okafor's number. Chioma almost didn't answer. But something made her pick up. My daughter. Mama Okafor's voice was barely recognizable, raw with tears. My daughter, I have no right to call you that. I have no right to ask anything of you. But please, let me say this. I was wrong. Completely, terribly wrong. I judged you. I struck you. I threw you out like garbage. And you were a queen all along. Chioma closed her eyes, fresh tears falling. I don't expect forgiveness, the old woman continued. But I need you to know that these past weeks, seeing what I destroyed, seeing what my son lost because I taught him to be weak, it has broken something in me. I raised my sons to value the wrong things. And now we all pay the price. Mama. No, let me finish. You protected my son's secret. You paid for things we needed without taking credit. You showed us more love than we ever showed you. And we repaid you with cruelty. I will carry this shame to my grave. Silence stretched between them. I forgive you, Chioma said finally. Not because you deserve it. Not because it erases what happened. But because I refuse to carry anger into my new life. I forgive you, Mama. But I will never forget. And I will never come back. I understand, Mama Okafor whispered. God bless you, my daughter. Go and be great. You already are. The line went dead. Chioma sat in her penthouse, surrounded by luxury she'd earned, holding a phone full of messages from women she'd inspired, finally free from the weight of other people's expectations. The Barren wife was gone. And in her place stood a woman who knew her worth. The story wasn't over yet. But the best chapter was just beginning. 6 months later, Lagos was ablaze with a different kind of gossip. Chioma Williams, no one called her CJ anymore, had become Nigeria's most visible businesswoman. Magazine covers, TED Talks, a seat on the African Union's Economic Advisory Board. Forbes had named her Africa's most influential woman under 40. But it was the photograph in this day newspaper that made the entire country stop and stare. Chioma, glowing in a flowing white dress, her hand resting on a visible baby bump, standing beside a handsome man the caption identified as Dr. David Okonkwo, son of the venture capitalist who'd witnessed her humiliation months ago. Secret wedding. Secret pregnancy. Secret love. The headlines screamed. In his small one-bedroom apartment in Yoba, far from the Acacia house he'd lost, Emeka stared at the newspaper with something beyond pain. Something like peace, wrapped in regret. He'd moved on. Not far, not gloriously, but forward. After being fired from Premier Trust Bank, he'd struggled for months. The reputation damage from the gala had been severe. Most banks wouldn't touch him. But eventually, a small microfinance institution in Mushin had taken a chance on him. The pay was a fraction of what he'd earned before. The office was cramped and noisy. But it was honest work, and his new boss, a tough grandmother who'd built a business from nothing, didn't care about his past. Everyone deserves a second chance, she told him. But only one. Don't waste it. He hadn't. His mother's calls had stopped after the first month. She'd moved back to the village in Enugu, her provision shop closed, her health failing. His brothers had scattered, forced to actually work for their livelihoods without anonymous benefactors smoothing the way. The family had fractured, each person facing the consequences of their cruelty. Emeka's phone rang. Tund, his former colleague who'd somehow remained a friend. Guy, have you seen the paper? Chi is pregnant. Can you imagine? The same woman your mother called Barren is about to become a mother. I saw, Emeka said quietly. And you're okay? I mean, it must be. I'm happy for her, Emeka interrupted. And he meant it. It had taken months of therapy, affordable only because a counselor at his church had offered reduced rates, but he'd reached something like acceptance. She deserves happiness. She deserved better than me. That's mature of you, bro. No. It's just honest. After hanging up, Emeka returned to the newspaper article. He read about Dr. David Okonkwo, successful cardiac surgeon, educated in London, met Chioma at a medical technology conference she'd funded. They'd bonded over shared values, mutual respect, and a commitment to using wealth to uplift others. The wedding had been private, just family and close friends. The pregnancy, her first, had been confirmed after they'd quietly undergone IVF using a donor. The article quoted Chioma, "Motherhood was never impossible for me. It just required the right partner and the right circumstances." The subtext was clear to anyone who'd followed the story. Emeka carefully cut out the photo and placed it in a journal he'd been keeping, his therapist's suggestion. A record of his journey from entitled husband to humbled man learning to rebuild. There was a knock at his door. When he opened it, he found Pastor Adeyemi standing there, looking older and more weathered than Emeka remembered. "My son, may I come in?" They sat across from each other in the small living room. The pastor's eyes took in the modest space, the complete opposite of the life Emeka had once lived. "I came to apologize," Pastor Adeyemi said. "That day at your mother's compound, I called myself a man of God, but I participated in cruelty. I should have defended Sister Chioma. I should have spoken truth. Instead, I enabled abuse. I've carried that shame for months. Pastor, No, let me finish. The church has been talking. About that night at the gala, about Sister Chioma's revelation. About how many women in our congregation suffer in silence, blamed for infertility that isn't theirs. I've been forced to face how our traditions sometimes contradict our faith. How we worship God but treat his daughters like commodities. Emeka nodded slowly. I've been learning the same lessons. The hard way. I heard you're in therapy. That you're working, living modestly, trying to rebuild. That takes courage. It takes desperation, Emeka corrected. I had no choice but to change. Perhaps. But you could have chosen bitterness. Many men would have. Instead, you chose growth. The pastor stood to leave, then paused. Sister Chioma's story has changed things, you know. Women in the church are asking questions now. Demanding respect. Insisting on medical tests for both partners before jumping to blame the wife. One woman even left her husband after discovering he'd been lying about his infertility for years. She credited Sister Chioma's courage for giving her courage. After the pastor left, Emeka sat alone with those words. His destroyed marriage, his public humiliation, his fall from grace. Perhaps it had served a purpose beyond his own punishment. Perhaps Chioma's truth-telling had created ripples he'd never see. Perhaps that was his legacy, being the cautionary tale that helped other women escape what she'd endured. It wasn't much, but it was something. In a private hospital room in Ikoyi, Chioma lay in her husband's arms, both of them watching the ultrasound screen as their daughter, they'd found out just yesterday, kicked and turned. She's active, David said, kissing his wife's temple. Just like her mother. God help us, Chioma laughed. The door opened, and Ada burst in, waving her phone. Have you seen Twitter? The internet is losing its mind over your pregnancy announcement. #BarrenWife is trending worldwide. Women are sharing their stories, getting second opinions, leaving toxic marriages. Chi, you've started a movement. I just told the truth, Chioma said softly. Yes, but truth has power. Especially when it comes from someone with a platform like yours. Ada sat on the edge of the bed. There's something else. Several organizations want to partner with TechVision to create a foundation for women's reproductive health, education about infertility, support for couples dealing with fertility issues. They want to call it the Chioma Williams Foundation for Reproductive Justice. Chioma looked at David, who nodded encouragingly. Do it, she said. But make sure it serves everyone, women blamed for infertility that isn't theirs, but also couples genuinely struggling, people who need IVF but can't afford it, education for families who don't understand the science. Make it comprehensive. Already on it, Ada grinned. I've got a whole proposal ready. We launch in 3 months. After Ada left, Chioma and David sat in comfortable silence, his hand resting on her belly. Do you ever regret it? He asked quietly. The 7 years with him? The time you lost? Chioma considered the question carefully. I used to think I'd wasted those years. But I learned things I needed to learn. About my own strength. About what I will and won't tolerate. About the difference between protecting someone and protecting myself. And if you could go back, knowing what you know now, I'd tell her, the younger me, to value herself more, to speak up sooner, to understand that real love doesn't require silence and submission. She turned to look at her husband. But I'd also tell her that her pain has purpose, that her story will help thousands of women, that the test she designed, as flawed as it was, would eventually lead her to something real. David kissed her gently. I'm glad your test led you to me. So am I. You passed, by the way. With flying colors. What was the test? Whether you'd love me even if I lost everything. Even if TechVision collapsed tomorrow. Even if this pregnancy hadn't worked and we couldn't have biological children. Even if the world turned against me. That's not a test, David said. That's just love. Real love. Exactly. 3 months later, the Chioma Williams Foundation for Reproductive Justice held its launch event at Eco Hotel. 500 guests attended: medical professionals, activists, couples who'd struggled with infertility, women who'd been blamed unjustly, men ready to have honest conversations about male infertility. Chioma, now visibly pregnant, took the stage to thunderous applause. "This foundation exists because of pain," she began. "My pain, yes. But also the pain of millions of women across Africa who've been blamed, shamed, divorced, abused, and even killed over infertility that wasn't theirs. Who've been called cursed when the real problem was medical. Who've been silenced when they needed to scream." The audience was rapt, many wiping tears. "But this foundation also exists because of hope. Hope that we can change these narratives. That we can educate families about reproductive science. That we can make fertility treatments accessible to everyone, not just the wealthy. That we can create a world where a woman's value isn't measured by her womb, and a man's worth isn't tied to his sperm count." She paused, one hand resting on her belly. "In 3 weeks, I'll give birth to my daughter. She'll grow up in a world where her mother was once called Barren. Where her father was called crazy for marrying a divorced woman. Where her grandmother, my mother, was told she raised a cursed child. But she'll also grow up knowing that her mother turned pain into purpose. That truth, even when it's hard and humiliating and costs everything, is always worth speaking." The applause was deafening. "So this foundation is my daughter's inheritance. Not my billions. Not my company. This, the knowledge that she comes from a woman who refused to be diminished. Who stood up. Who fought back. Who transformed shame into strength." As Chioma left the stage, she noticed a figure at the back of the room. Emeka, standing alone, clapping quietly. Their eyes met across the distance. He nodded once, acknowledgement, respect, maybe even gratitude. She nodded back, not forgiveness exactly, but something close to peace. Then she turned away, walking toward her future. Toward her husband waiting in the wings. Toward the daughter she'd carry into a world she was actively making better. The barren wife was a memory now, a story she'd told to set other women free. In her place stood Chioma Williams, CEO, wife, soon-to-be mother, philanthropist, truth-teller. Undiminished. Unashamed. Finally, completely free. Epilogue. 5 years later, a young woman sat in a doctor's office in Lagos, her husband beside her, both sets of hands clenched together. "Mrs. Adele Eek," the doctor said gently, "the tests show that your husband has severe oligospermia. You, however, are perfectly fertile. The infertility issues you've been experiencing are not because of you." The woman's eyes filled with tears, relief, anger, vindication all at once. Her husband's face darkened. "But my family said." "Your family was wrong," the doctor interrupted firmly. "And before you even think about blaming your wife or hiding this, let me tell you about the Chioma Williams Foundation. They can help you. Counseling, IVF options, education for your families. But only if you're willing to face the truth." The husband looked at his wife, really looked at her, and saw the same choice Emeka had faced 5 years ago. Protect his pride or protect his marriage. "I'll call them," he said quietly, squeezing his wife's hand. "We'll call them together." The wife smiled through her tears, thinking of the woman whose story had just saved her marriage. The woman whose courage to speak truth had created ripples that were still spreading, still healing, still changing lives. Sometimes, one woman's refusal to stay silent becomes 1,000 women's permission to speak. Sometimes, surviving isn't enough. You have to transform. And sometimes, the woman the world calls barren turns out to be the most fertile of all, planting seeds of change that grow into forests of justice. Chioma Williams had planted those seeds. And across Africa, they were blooming. The end. Moral: your true worth cannot be measured by others' limited understanding. When people judge you based on their narrow expectations, their verdict says more about their blindness than your value. Stand in your truth, protect your peace, And never let someone else's inability to see your worth diminish your light. Real love uplifts. It never requires you to shrink. Retry. Claude can make mistakes. Please double-check responses. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe, and share it with your friends, and most important thing, turn your notification bell so you can get informed when I dropped another amazing story. Drop your thoughts and reactions in the comments. What would you do if your spouse tried to kill you and you survive? Will you take a revenge or disappear forever?